Hello everyone. Welcome to my Q&A session. It's great to have you here. I'm Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer. I would love to, if you feel like it, I know some of you are still connecting, but if you could let me know if you can hear me okay, that would be great. And I might need to move my mic a little bit closer. Let me know if you can hear me okay. And also say hello in the chat. I love seeing conversation in the chat if you want to say hello. And you can say where you're from. I'm in Newfoundland, Canada. So I know we may have people from all over the world. It's always really interesting to see where people are from. So thank you so much for being here. It's really my honor and privilege to be able to offer these sessions from you. Oh, from England, Cumbria, England. Wow. We always say here across the pond, from across the pond. My parents were both from England, so I used to spend a bit of time in my childhood going back and forth to England to see my grandparents. But we stayed in Newfoundland all this time. So just feel free to comment in the chat. I really love seeing conversation in the chat. Tell me where you're from, say hello. I'm going to, first of all, just be doing a little introduction. Then I'm going to go over the questions that were submitted to me via the form. And then if we have time at the end, I will be answering any questions. I'll take some questions from you that you put in the chat. Okay, oh, hi from South Africa. Wow. I actually knew someone else with the name Vannekerk. Isn't that cool? They moved here to Newfoundland where I live. So I even know that name. So welcome, Kim and Denise, and everyone else is here. I can see Dee and Susan, Sandy. I just see your names up there, a Galaxy tab, whoever's here, welcome. And I'm really thrilled to have you here. I am recording this, so I will be sending out the recording afterwards. So, if you don't have to scramble taking notes, you may want to, I don't know, Lindsay, if they have the ability to save the chat. But I will share some, if there's some links and things, I will share some of those in the chat. So if you can't save the chat, then you can always just open up that link and then save it afterwards, if that's possible for you. So I want to say, first of all, I'm the wellness engineer. I am not a doctor. So keep that in mind. I don't understand your full history, of course. And because I'm a health coach, I wasn't an engineer for 30 years. And then I became a health coach in 2019. And so I'm certainly can't be giving you advice on, everything on health and for your particular condition. I'm going to be answering generally and also based on my own experiences, my own beliefs and understanding. So I'm just offering you what I think are my own best solutions. So I also wanted to say that I want to help you feel empowered. That is my goal. That's my mission in all my work that I'm doing, is to help people feel empowered in their health, because I know when we have problems like pain, I'm assuming many of you are experiencing pain. It's easy to feel like a victim, but I want you to feel empowered. Everyone should be able to say the chat. Okay, thank you, Lindsay. All right, wonderful. So just a little bit about me so that you know who I am. And you may have heard some of this already from the summit. So I'll keep it short because we've got a lot of questions we want to get through here. So as I said earlier, I was an engineer. I was a structural engineer for 30 years. And I had very stressful year in my life, starting with my mother dying and suddenly, and she was my best friend. And it was a very tough time. I had to deal with the house. I had to deal and all the contents, and my parents were collectors. And I had my siblings. So you can imagine it's a tough time. And so about a year after was when I started to get really severe joint pain. Just came really suddenly and really bad. It started in my shoulders, and my arm would have to go in a sling. And then it was one shoulder, the other shoulder, my knees, my feet. I got orthotics thinking, well, that, I guess I'm just getting to that age. My hands started to get so sore that I couldn't turn door handles. My knees swelled up grotesquely, and my jaw like snapped one day. So all these things are going on. I didn't know what it was, and I knew it had to be related to the stress because it was so sudden. And so I thought, okay, I just need for all this stress to be done and it'll be fine. But I got worse, and I actually got to the point where I was nearly disabled, crippled, in pain, afraid of my future, really. And I felt like I was letting everybody down because I was a people pleaser. That's another part of this story. And I felt like I had no future to look forward to because I was, at that rate, I was going to be disabled. And I really had, this may sound a little funny, but I'm being totally honest with you, but I felt like I had a voice saying to me, you're going to figure this out and you're going to tell other people about it. And so I was still disabled, almost disabled, but I kind of knew in my heart I would figure it out. And so I'm an engineer, problem solver. I just started, trying different things. Luckily, I had a doctor that told me that foods could cause pain, and gluten and dairy were the two worst ones. So I kind of cut them out cold turkey. I did see like a big reduction in pain with that. So I started paying attention to what I was eating, and I got a lot better. And then I discovered that I had a bacterial overgrowth in my small intestine. So I had to deal with that. I started looking into different lifestyle factors, discovered functional medicine, decided to study the health coaching program so I learned more about it. I wasn't even necessarily thinking, although in the back of my mind I was thinking maybe I'll use this to help people, as a platform to help people. But I kind of kept on going on along my path, figuring things out, and I really came to understand the mind-body connection, and understanding that there's so much to us more than just our physical body, and that pain it's not the problem. It's telling us that there is a problem. And I realized that it wasn't just that year of stress. It went way back to childhood, where I developed feelings about myself that I didn't have big trauma. I had little t trauma, I would call it. But it left me feeling really not worthy. And that led to people pleasing and perfectionism, which is why I kind of tied this stuff in the summit. I was very intentional with the summit about the order, the people that I got to speak on the summit, and the order in which I presented that for you, because I wanted you to understand these different things. I wanted you to understand that there is hope. So I started with hope in the big picture. I wanted you to understand that we are energy. Quantum physics tells us we're energy. Everything is energy. And so we can work on our physical body, and that can do things, just like I said with the diet when I changed it. But the physical part of us is kind of like the caboose on the train. There's so much more to us, and that's the energetic level. So when we address our energy, then we can really move things. And that's what I found in my own journey as well. And then I moved on to talking about the mind-body connection, and then movement, and then we looked at food and lifestyle, and then other modalities, and then the specific conditions. So that was intentional, because I want you to have that path too, that there is hope, that we are energetic beings, and so energy comes into play. But what is energy? It's our thoughts, it's our feelings, there's energy in the food that we eat, the people that we're around, the earth that we're touching, the things that we put on our skin. All of these things are they affect us, because everything is energy and vibration. Okay, so let me move on and talk about, I'm going to address some of the questions. First of all, I just want to address a couple of gratitudes that came in, because I love starting with gratitudes. Gratitude, talk about vibrations. Gratitude is one of the feelings that's a great vibration in your body. It's a very healing vibration. And so when we when we create these healing vibrations, we're creating an environment that can allow the body to heal. So all we're doing is allowing the body to heal. Okay, so we're creating those environments. Anyway, so gratitude. So Chris said, I'd like to thank you all for putting together a very exciting and informative week with such varied speakers. There was something for everyone. And then Penny said, congratulations on a well done summit. I like your interview style. You asked thoughtful questions, listened well, and gently kept the speakers on track. That's challenging sometimes. Your enthusiasm put everyone at ease. Well done. Loads of work. I appreciate that it wasn't pitchy. So thank you so much for that, Penny. So there's the gratitudes. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the questions. So May asked, can you share the strategies you used in your journey of reversing rheumatoid arthritis? So I talked about some of that already. I started with food. I didn't really realize, if I know now what I knew, if I'd known then what I know now, I would have started more with the energy and meditation and these kinds of things. But I was just like all about food at that point. And not that that's wrong. It's part of the puzzle, but not all of it. So I did start with hope, actually. So I started Googling and seeking out stories of other people that had healed. So I believe hope is so important, because without hope, you can't stay motivated. And when we're making changes into our life and trying to create an environment in which our body can heal, we can't live like we did before, because that's what got us where we were. We need to make changes. And so it's staying the course. It requires understanding what your why is. So the hope and your why. So I did that. I would also picture, I used a lot of visualization, picturing how my life would look when I had all my energy and strength and mobility and flexibility back again. And so I would picture these things. So whatever it is for you, picture those things that you would do, but not just picture them, also feel how good would it feel. So for me, it was like climbing up a mountain. How good would it feel to climb up that mountain and be at the top and raising your arms in victory? And I would feel that, and I would run through this every single day. So that was something I did. I think part of it was that I had read a lot about personal development over the years. And so I started taking some of those personal development type of practices and pulling them in, not really realizing what I was doing, but actually now, I know now that those are all very powerful. I also used affirmations a lot. So I mentioned that my mother was my best friend. And so when I lost her, I felt like I'd lost my champion. And here I was 50 years old thinking, okay, it's time for me to be my own champion. So I started speaking to myself in the way that my mother would speak to me. Now, I had a very loving relationship with my mother, so that worked for me. Not everyone does. So start speaking kindly to yourself and saying things to yourself in a way that someone that loved you would say, like the way a best friend would speak to you. So I would literally look at myself in the mirror and saying, you're doing so great. You're making progress every day, and every way you're making progress. And then I started switching it to I. I am making progress. I am an example of what's possible. Every day I'm discovering new ways to help heal my body. I'm getting stronger every day. So I would literally use affirmations to help me. And then I started doing a bit more with energy work. And along the way, I discovered The Energy Codes. It's a book by Dr. Sue Morter, who was one of the speakers at the summit. So it's called The Energy Codes, my book is well worn, the 7-step system to awaken your spirit, heal your body, and live your best life. And I had really heard all the concepts before, but I really loved the way she pulled it all together. And I started studying the work of Joe Dispenza and Dr. Bruce Lipton, who also spoke on the summit, and really kind of pulling all this together and understanding quantum physics. Well, I'm certainly not not an expert in quantum physics, but I understand enough to know that that's the real deal. And quantum physics tells us that everything is energy and vibration. So it made sense to start looking at those things. And I also surrounded myself with a community. I actually created my own community because I couldn't find a community of people here that were going through what I was going through. So I started my own. I did start a rheumatoid arthritis healing support group locally. And I met at the local library. And then but I was leading it, so I was kind of teaching them what I was learning, and then COVID hit. And even before that, actually, I started an online community because I was helping people, but also like in community we heal, right? In community we can support one another, and so if someone's going through a little bit of a challenge, they can get support from someone else. So there we go. That's kind of what I did. And I did do some different energy work. I did Reiki, trained in Reiki years and years ago, but I did yoga and learned about breath work. And I'd done breath work. Actually, I've been practicing yoga for years, but I became a certified yoga teacher last year, about a year ago now. And because I wanted to pull all of that into my practice as well, knowing how powerful the breath is. So I teach a lot on breath work now because it's the fastest way to get us into that rest and digest state. And it really affects our health on all levels. And it's free, and it's the ultra portable device. So there you go. Okay, so that's kind of in a nutshell what I did. And I think, it doesn't matter what label you've got. If your body is talking to you, it's the words I use, if your body is talking to you through pain or anxiety or just a feelings of not being comfortable or gastrointestinal issues, whatever it is, psoriasis, things on your skin, whatever it is, your body is talking to you, just trying to get your attention and say it needs your help. It's trying to say, I need your help in creating an environment to heal. It's gotten to be too much. And from the summit, we learned that basically there's two buckets of causes of chronic pain, and I would say a lot of chronic illnesses too. One is stress, and that can be on a lot of different levels. And the other is toxins, which I would say is also another form of stress. So I kind of feel like it's just stress, in life. It can come from a lot of different levels. So we want to listen to our body and provide that environment. And that's what the summit was about. Okay, so the next question I have here. So I hope that helps. I hope that in my story, you can find something that can help you with where you are and where you want to be. So the next question from Denise was, what are the best physical treatments for fibro? So fibromyalgia, it's an interesting one because sometimes it's considered autoimmune, sometimes it's not, because there's no inflammation, it's just pain. So on the summit, and I don't know if you had a chance, Denise, to listen to Dr. Roger Murphy on the summit. So if you bought the summit, you can go back and listen to him. He was on the last day where I had the speakers addressing specific conditions. And so Dr. Roger Murphy is a naturopathic doctor, I believe. Yeah, he's a naturopathic doctor who specializes in fibromyalgia. So I learned from him actually, and I have had some fibromyalgia clients over the years, but he talked about a 4-step process. He says actually that people with fibromyalgia have a low pain threshold due to low levels of serotonin, the neurotransmitter. And that's totally tied to sleep. So he says the first step is to get deep restorative sleep. Now, I know some people may say, I can't sleep because I'm in pain. Then you need to kind of really prioritize sleep and do everything you can to make sure that that the sleep is as good as it can be for where you are right now. You want to have good sleep hygiene. So all the things that go with sleep hygiene, like get the television out of the room, make sure your room is not too warm, not too cold. Get distractions, turn your devices in airplane mode. Um, uh, some others, you want to have a wind down routine before going to bed, for that last hour before going to bed, where you're not looking at screens. And actually, a good night's sleep starts first thing in the morning. Getting exercise, so getting movement first thing in the morning, like within the first hour of waking, and getting sunlight on your eyes. So don't wear sunglasses. Don't stare at the sun, but don't wear sunglasses. Get natural light on your eyes early in the morning, and that helps all those neurotransmitters start the rhythm. If you think about it, we weren't really meant to live in houses with artificial light. That's not how the human body um, worked for thousands of years. So it's only really since we had the light bulb that a lot of this has become a problem, right? So do all those things to get deep restorative sleep, and then address nutrient deficiencies with diet and quality supplementation. So start doing things, and these really apply to pretty much anyone. Avoid the most inflammatory foods. So I mentioned gluten, dairy, sugar, um, the processed fats, and if you want to know those, Ben Azadi on the summit did a really good summary of them. But basically, safflower oil, sunflower oil, canola oil, grapeseed oil. Those ones are the ones you want to avoid. And basically, it's easier to say the ones to have. So the ones to have are like organic avocado oil, organic olive oil, and organic coconut oil are really great choices that kind of cover a lot of different things. Um, so, and then you want to, avoid, like, not have what am I trying to say? The processed foods. There's so much, like, honestly, crap and chemicals in those processed foods. So you don't want to have those, because your body then has to deal with them. And quality supplementation. Make sure that you're getting quality supplements if you aren't getting the nutrients you need from your food. And then assist the adrenal glands. So assist the adrenal glands by lowering stress, and then also addressing gut health with the anti-inflammatory diet and taking a digestive enzyme. Now, what I did there was summarize the 4 steps from Dr. Roger Murphy, and I'm going to share the link to his website, because let me see if I can copy it here and then paste it in the chat. So he is a specialist in fibromyalgia. So I would say, Denise, contact him, or even like just go to his website. You can learn a lot. I know he's such a heart-centered physician. There's loads of free stuff there for you. So I hope that helps. Okay, next question. I had a question from Penny about back pain. And so she said, this was interesting, I thought, that her back pain actually got worse during the summit, which was interesting. She said, no reflection on you or your speakers. But I think sometimes, like, it was, even though it was hopeful and about becoming pain-free, you are kind of focusing on pain for a little while. And so maybe some of you may have experienced that, because we're so focused on the problem. I now really want you to get around to focusing on the solutions and the possibilities. So that could be the problem. But she also mentioned Dr. John Sarno and a book by him, how it helped her so much. So I'm going to share that with you, because he wrote a book called Healing Back Pain back in the early 90s, I think. And then he wrote another one called The Mind Body Prescription. That's the one that I've read. And it's really quite interesting. It's really about the subconscious mind. Oh, Lindsay says, Dr. Roger Murphy has a live every Wednesday night. Thank you, Lindsay, for pointing that out. That's great. See what I mean about heart-centered? He's just so great. Okay, so yeah, the mind-body prescription is about how the mind creates pain as a distraction for emotions that become too much. So really an emotional basis behind the pain, which I thought was super interesting. Now, I will point out, Dr. Yoni Witten was on the summit. He was voted one of the 5 most popular talks. And his website, again, I'm going to copy that. I thought I had it fixed up so I could just copy it. Let's see. I need to go into my little thing here. Anyway, he's a chiropractor, and he's an expert in back pain. Well, he's an expert in a lot of pain. So I'm going to share his website with you. Okay, let's just go back in here. He talked about, oh, thank you, Lindsay. She's so good. The Pain Fix Protocol, that's his website. Now, he said the #1 thing you can do for chronic back pain is rhythmic movement every day. Rhythmic movement, just walking or dancing, but rhythmic movement. He also talked about an exercise, and this was kind of more for neck pain, where you take your chin and you tuck your chin back, and you try to get it to the end of your clavicle, like your collarbone there. But touching it down, moving it down. And so that was quite interesting as well. So Dr. Yoni Witten, expert in back pain. I think he's got an excellent program that can help you with that. So I hope that helps, Penny. And I had another question here. Let me see. Another one about from KP asked about, I have right knee pain for 5 years, and I'm massaging with Ayurvedic oil and also doing mudra meditation. Can you suggest a correct breathing pattern to reduce my pain? Yes, so this breathing pattern is very helpful for pain anywhere. So I'm just going to say, for anyone, if you've got pain, and I'm assuming that you do, anywhere in your body, you can use, so the breath is like spirit in the body, but it's our energy in the body. So you can use the breath and your imagination to direct the energy. So actually, Dr. Sue Morter would say pain is basically energy not flowing. Energy not flowing. A lot of people would say that is true. That if we've got pain or illness or disease, it's energy not flowing. So we want to get energy flowing again. So how do we do that? We put our attention on it. So wherever you've got the pain, just get really relaxed with the breath and imagine. So I'm going to use the knee as an example, and you may have pain perhaps in the shoulder or somewhere else, but you can kind of adapt this. So what we want to do is breathe deep into the belly. And we want to imagine that we're pulling the breath through whatever the furthest away appendage is. Okay, so imagine if it's a knee, I'm straightening my leg. So I'm contracting, I'm flexing the foot. You can't see it here, but I'm flexing the foot and I'm contracting all the muscles in my leg. And I'm imagining now that I'm inhaling and I'm pulling the breath through the leg, like I'm pulling it through like a thick milkshake, pulling it through, and then really coming through where the pain is. So if it's the knee, pulling it through there. So pulling the breath, inhaling into the belly and the heart area. And then exhaling, and I'm going to go back down. So I'm imagining that I'm going back down again as I exhale and going down through my torso, through that hip, contracting that leg again, exhaling really slowly through that leg again, like it's a milkshake, and going through the knee, and then exhaling out through the bottom of that flexed foot, and then inhaling again. So I'm creating a circuit, and if I want to, I can even have that breath go out above my head, and then inhale back down again into the belly and the torso area, and then exhale down through my leg again. So if the pain was in your shoulder, you could do the same thing with your arm. So you could imagine that I'm tightening my arm muscles here, I'm flexing that hand, and when I'm imagining that I'm inhaling the breath through here, coming up all through that arm, all through that arm, into that shoulder, into the heart. And then exhaling out again, going through the shoulder, really concentrating, and also having a loving feeling for it too. So it's not like, oh, hate you, pain, go away. It's like having a loving feeling, like, okay, shoulder, I hear you. I'm there for you. I'm not going to forget you again. So just let's breathe through it. And then you create that circle, and then or circuit. Then maybe you might want to exhale above and then come down again and then out. So really, like, creating circuits. It's like, imagine that you're creating a circuit, and put love into it. Put loving kindness into it, as if your painful spot was like a small child or a pet that needed, like, just needed some care and attention. So that's how you need to feel about your body, that it needs this care and attention. So how was that? Did anyone give that a try while I was running through it? And how was it? Did you find that helpful at all? I have had lots of people say they get an immediate, I mean, it may not be totally gone, but just say if your pain maybe was a 7 beforehand and it goes down to a 5 or 4, like, that's a big improvement, right? So try that, keep doing it, keep energizing it. That's what we want to do, energize it. Okay, I've had a couple of questions here now on gut health. So let me see. I don't know who this is. I'll just say May. May says, what are health issues that might be the cause of extreme bloating, distended abdomen, and gas when only drinking pure water, and or much worse when eating any food? One big cause of bloating is a condition called SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. It's very common. I had that myself, and I didn't have a ton of bloating, but I know I've seen some people like just have really big bloating. And normally, though, water doesn't cause that, May. So I don't know your whole situation, but I think water should not cause bloating like this. So I think it's a really good idea for you to see a health practitioner and get some advice about that. It's probably a sign that you've got a lot of distress in the gastrointestinal system. So don't ignore it, like, get it looked after, see someone about it. It could be SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So SIBO is a case of the right bacteria but in the wrong place. So normally our small intestine, so basically the food goes in through the mouth, down the esophagus, into the stomach, and then generally into the small intestine, and then into the large intestine, and then out through the anus. So the small intestine is where most of the absorption of nutrients happens, and it is generally pretty sterile. Like, there's not a lot of bacteria there. The stomach acid that has been added to our food along the way, that should be taking care of the bacteria. But for whatever reason, and it could be low stomach acid, it could be due to medications, it could be due to surgery, it could be due to stress. All kinds of things can result in the bacteria, which is supposed to be in the large intestine, moving up into the small intestine. And because the food is not as digested there, the living is really easy for those bacteria. So, and bacteria create gas. They release gas, just they have respiration like we do, right? So they're releasing gas. And so that's what causes that bloating feeling. It's actually from the bacteria releasing its gas, and then a lot of bacteria. So normally we shouldn't have all that bacteria in the small intestine. And then what can happen then is the small intestine, so the small intestine is lined with villi, like shag carpet, and that gives like a really big surface area for absorption. So what can happen when there's SIBO or any kind of imbalance of bacteria in the small intestine is these villi get damaged and they kind of fall flat, and we don't absorb very well. So then you might see things like, vitamin deficiencies. You might see floating stools. You might see constipation or diarrhea. And then the other thing that happens is that all this bacteria can damage the gut lining, so that small intestine lining, and then create a condition called leaky gut, which I'm sure you heard like Dr. Tom O'Brien and some of the other speakers talk about leaky gut. And when the gut gets leaky, the immune system is right on the other side. About 80% of our 70-80% of the immune system is on the other side of that digestive system, and then it gets alerted, and then that's what results in the inflammation and then pain down the road. So we certainly want to get it taken care of. So there's certain foods cause that are more basically more fermentable. So these are, and they're healthy foods. So someone could be eating what's, a healthy diet. They're not having the processed foods. They're not having all this other bad food. And yet they're still getting this happening. So it's even the amounts, like as an example, 2 spears of asparagus would be okay, but any more than that can cause bloating. And what's another example I can think of right now? Like small amount of sweet potato might be okay, but if you have a lot, it's going to be too much. You can have the broccoli flowers, but not broccoli stalks. Like it's really funny. Actually, I'm going to share with you a link. I grabbed this link ahead of time. So if anyone is interested, this is a copy. This is a link. There we go. I want to copy this link. It gives you an idea of the foods that can cause this. So this was developed by Dr. Allison Siebecker. She wasn't on my summit, but she is a SIBO expert. So you could grab that link to download this really great document that shows you the foods that are fermentable, and she's got them on a scale, which is really great. Because SIBO was something that happened to me, I wrote a lot about SIBO, and I wrote a series of 4 blogs. I'm going to share with you the link to the first one, and that links to the other one. So it was a 4-part blog. So the first one is symptoms and causes, and then I did treatments, and then diet, and then prevention, like prevention from happening again. So if SIBO and actually Casey asked about SIBO as well. So I'm sharing that with you. For me, I can tell you what I did. I was working with a functional medicine practitioner. I did get the breath test done, which is really the test that we have now that can measure how much bacteria there is in there. You don't have to. You could even try that SIBO food guide. Try avoiding some of the SIBO, the high fermentable foods, and see if your symptoms subside. And if they do, chances are then that it is SIBO. It's kind of like, if this solution works, well then that's what it was. But I had a pretty severe case, so I also used herbal antimicrobials, and I did talk about that in the blogs if you want to read down through that. But it took me a while. It took me 8 months to clear it up. And also, I'll just say here that SIBO is another one. It's not like the root cause. SIBO is a symptom. So you still need to address what caused SIBO in the beginning. So what caused it? Like why? A lot of it is stress. Okay, for me, it was probably stress, because when we get stressed, we're in that fight or flight state of the nervous system. And so the digestion kind of stops working well. And so we're not producing as much stomach acid. I think for me, my ileocecal valve, and I do talk about that in one of the blogs that I'm sharing there with you. The ileocecal valve maybe doesn't work as well, and that can also happen from surgeries. medications. You know, of course, when I first started having all this pain, I was popping Advils all the time, right? Which is making everything worse because that contributes to leaky gut. Probably contributed to SIBO. So SIBO is still a symptom, and they say that, oh, people, you know, it tends to come back. It will if you don't address the root causes. So if your root cause is stress, if you're permanently going around in a stressful state like I was, because I was constantly trying to people please and trying to be Miss Perfect and all these other things, I was stressed all the time. I didn't even know it. It was so normal for me, I didn't even know it. So that has to be addressed. All right. Let me see. I had a question from Patricia about, she says, I've listened to you and learned about your work from your chronic pain summit and Dr. Amy summit. There's a topic that many don't speak about, and wondering if you have any resources combined with your knowledge specifically about which yoga poses are okay with prolapse. So I'm assuming, Patricia, that you're talking about you like prolapse of the uterus. There's other prolapses as well, but I'm assuming that's what you're talking about because that's how I'm going to answer it anyway. Okay, so specifically, the pelvic floor prolapse. Talking about yoga poses, so you probably have heard of this before. You probably everyone most of us women who have had babies have heard of Kegel exercises or Kegel exercises. So that's when you squeeze. So it's as if you were going to the bathroom, going to urinate, and you had to stop mid-flow and squeezed. That is your pelvic floor muscles. So if you got a prolapse, you probably that muscle may be kind of weak. So in yoga, I will say though, I do want to point out that it's not really good practice to do that while you're urinating, because that we don't want to stop the flow, right? That can cause bladder issues. So don't do it while you're urinating. I'm just using that as an example so you know the muscles to use, okay? So Mula Bandha is something we do in yoga, and it literally means root lock. So it's down at the root, at the pelvic floor, and you squeeze that together. So it's the same as a Kegel exercise. You squeeze that. So of course that that helps to raise the pelvic floor, strengthens the pelvic floor muscles, and pranayama isn't, so any kind of breath work will help with that, and especially if you tie the breath work in with keeping that root lock tight. And that doesn't have to be super tight, just like keeping your attention there. Tadasana, which is mountain pose. So standing in mountain pose, especially if you're standing in mountain pose while doing Mula Bandha, is so good for that pelvic floor area. Any kind of inversions. Now, I shouldn't say any kind of inversions because there's some that may not be really good, but in general, inversions. So when I'm talking about inversions, it could even be things like bridge pose. So where you're lifting the pelvis higher than the chest. Anything where you're lifting the pelvis is going to be helpful. So any kind of incline positions, upside down positions like shoulder stand. Now, a lot of us may not be there. Just gonna let Paul in. And another one that you might really like is I call it legs up the wall. You can shimmy your way up. So you're lying on your back, you shimmy your way up to the wall, legs up the wall, or you can also put the legs, bring your feet together and just kind of hold that. You can even elevate your back a little bit or have cushions around just to make it comfortable for you. So again, we're elevating that pelvis a little bit. So those are all really good ones. Now, you also asked about what ones to avoid. So some to avoid are anything where you're like doing like boat pose, like double leg lifts. So boat pose, plank, not so good. Belly a belly lock. So locking the belly is probably not so good, because if you lock the belly, you're pushing down on that pelvic floor. Any deep squats, so yogi squat, probably not a great one for you to do, because again, putting pressure on that pelvis. Forward bends with wide legs, so like triangle standing, forward fold triangle pose, not so good. And anything that's where you're bearing weight on your upper body, because that again is going to be putting pressure down. But I wanted to show you, I don't know, Patricia, if you heard um, Jana Danielson on my summit. She teaches Pilates, so I know you asked about yoga, but she's also the inventor of, I'm going to show you, the Cooch Ball. The Cooch Ball. So she worked with a doctor who used to do surgeries for prolapsed pelvic floor muscles, and he said you don't need to do it. So this ball, you actually sit on it on your pelvis, and it's not inflated very much, because I wanted it to be a little bit softer. The more you inflate it, the harder it is to sit on. So anyway, Jana is the inventor of the Cooch Ball, and this is really good for helping to strengthen the pelvic floor muscles. So I use it by sitting on it while I'm doing breath work. So I'll do a little bit of breath work sitting. I can't sit on it for very long. Like, it's pretty intense, right? So you could try that. And I did notice, I got Jana's website here. Let me, Cooch Ball. Okay, let me grab it here. Copy. Should I get the right one? No. Okay, here we go. I got it. I'm copying it. I'm putting it in the chat. I did notice from Jana's site here, when I was looking down through reviews of the Cooch Ball, someone specifically mentioned that they had, I think she said, a problem with prolapsed pelvic floor for 8 years. There's an 8 in there somewhere, or maybe in just a short time with the Cooch Ball it helped. I think she said 8 years, something like that. But anyway, it did help this person. They left a testimonial on the website. So that is helpful, I think. So let me know what you think. I'd love to know if you tried the Cooch Ball, when you try it, and let me know what you think about it. All right, I'm going to slide these questions up here so I can see them. Okay. How are we doing for time? Whoa, time flies when you're having fun. How are you finding this? Let me know in the chat. Is this helpful? Are you finding some useful information? Do you have more questions that aren't being answered? I'd love to hear them. Just let me know in the chat. Send me a message. Let me know. Oh, Yvette says very helpful. Thank you. Thank you. And anyone else who's got anything they want to share, well, let me know. I'll get on with the next question though. This one was interesting. This was something Mohammed asked. Didn't really ask a question. He said the theory of transient hypofrontality and its effect on anxiety. This was a new term for me. Transient hypofrontality and its effect on anxiety. I had to look it up. And so from what I understand, it's then means that while we're under certain conditions, so I'll tell you what the common name for this is: runner's high. Runner's high. So have you heard about this? When people are running, they actually get a high from running. And so what's happening then is that the focused thinking part, the cognitive part of our brain, gets a rest. And so the other parts can function and become more dominant. And then it can be a bit of a release, right? So people feel this high. So I have never really worked with anyone on this specifically, Mohammed, but I would think it makes sense to me that if something is helping people feel good, then it's probably going to help with anxiety. But I also wanted to offer this, and if some of you came to my live Q&As during the week of the summit, you know that I love this book by Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. And actually, Dr. Bruce Lipton mentioned this book. This is an old book. I read this book back in like years ago, long before RA. 2000, I think I was looking at my journal and I saw that I read it for the first time in 2003 or 2009. Anyway, a long time ago. So basically in this book she talks about in the back. There's a whole section on relating different conditions and the, how does she word it? The probable cause, and then new thought patterns, so for anxiety, for example, you get to the anxiety. The probable cause, she says, is not trusting the flow and the process of life. And the new thought is, I love and approve of myself. I love and approve of myself, and I trust the process of life. I am safe. It kind of makes sense, right? If we have anxiety, we don't feel safe. So we want to send a message that we are safe. And you know, really, most of us are safe, even though we're kind of, many of us are going around in this perpetual fight, flight, fear state, which our body thinks is fight, fear, life, which is why it stops running everything so efficiently and why we end up with getting problems. If we can send the signal that we are safe, and most of us are, we really are safe. Like we don't have to be worried for our lives. And if it's not life threatening, it's probably only ego threatening. So if we can kind of let go of that, train ourselves to let go of that, then we can release some of these feelings. So anxiety is a symptom as well. It's a symptom of not feeling safe. So I wanted to offer that up. How many of you have read this book by Louise Hay or are familiar with it? It's one I use all the time in my practice. I really, really love it. Okay, then Laverne, I had a question from Laverne, said, there's a noise in my left ear for some years now, and it's getting worse. I've tried Synapse XT, but it doesn't prove effective. This tinnitus, however you pronounce it, is getting to me. Oh my goodness, I feel so much for you, Laverne. Like, I know having that ringing going all the time must be so difficult. And I know I've had clients with it, and there's not really a lot offered. Most of it is like helping you deal with it so it doesn't stress you out as much. That's kind of what most of the things are. Most of the treatments, like a biofeedback is one of those. It is connected, I believe, to like that whole the vagus nerve. So anything you can do that's going to help the vagus nerve may help. So just some things that I've learned over the years, singing, gargling, you know what's really effective, but we probably wouldn't want to do it all the time, but that gag reflex. So if you can like, you know, get that gag reflex going, because the back of our throat innervates at the vagus nerve. And so anything we can do that's going to help that, like vibrations there. Bumblebee breath is a great one as well, or hummingbee's breath in yoga. So just or you can just hum. So humming, especially if you can do the humming where you're going to feel it in your throat or feel it like in the back of your neck, and play around with tones like going up or down with your humming, and notice where you feel it in the body, and direct it where the pain is. So, or well, in this case, not pain, but we know it's connected to this area up here. So I'm going to also tell you what Louise Hay said about tinnitus or tinnitus. Here we go. So she says the probable cause is refusal to listen, not hearing the inner voice, and stubbornness. I'm sorry if that kind of makes you feel like, oh, but you want to get well, right? And then the new thought pattern is, I trust my higher self. So whether you think higher self or myself or my inner voice, whatever you want to say, I listen with love to my inner voice. I release all that is unlike the action of love. So you could give that a try. Another thing, and I think I did this one in my little on the summit. I did that breathing, and I did a whole breathing pattern where we imagine the breath going in through the eustachian tube and coming down into, the torso area, and then coming out. Imagine the breath coming out through up through that eustachian tube, out through the ear, and coming out again. So that same, like, directing the breath with your mind. And so in that way, we're energizing. So again, it's a lack of energy flowing. So we want to get the energy flowing. Now, it might feel like you've got too much energy if you're hearing this buzzing, but try it. And with all of these things, notice if it works for you. Do you feel better as a result of doing some of these things? Come at this with like a playful curiosity. I'm curious to know this fun kind of thing, breathing through my ear. Is that going to work? Maybe it's going to work. And, if you believe that these things work, it's helpful as well, because our beliefs are really powerful. Our mind, especially our subconscious mind, listens. And so it's really the subconscious mind that's running our entire body. So we want to direct it with thoughts that are going to be supportive of running the body in a way that's going to create the healing environment. Oh, okay. Getting down to the end now, and I only got 5 minutes left. Okay, so I had a question about the connective tissue. That's an environment that everything lives in and communicates through. Absolutely. So the more we're learning about that connective tissue, which really runs all throughout our body, is that it is a super highway. Information gets transferred across it instantaneously, much more quickly than our nervous system. So that connective tissue, it's like electrical. And so anything we can do to get that connective tissue flowing. So that's where our lymph system is as well. So things you can do like lymphatic drainage, stretching, especially stretching, it's, just stretching that connective tissue. Gua sha, right? A gua sha, or goodness, what's it called? I'm having a little brain fart where you rub, like, really gently rubbing the skin so that you can get this flow going. Now, Dr. Christine Schaffner, I don't have her website. Maybe Lindsay, you can grab her website really quickly. She talks a lot about lymphatic flow, and I know she talks about the connective tissue and how important that is. And she's really lovely as well. So I think that's a great, yeah, there we go. Dr. Christine Schaffner. Thank you, Lindsay. She's lovely and has lots of great resources there for you on how to get that connective tissue activated and get things communicating like they should be. So I didn't get any time to get to, just got 3 minutes left now. So I didn't get time to get to any questions from our live listeners, but feel free to, there's another link. There we go. Thank you, Lindsay. Feel free to go ahead and use that same form. You can submit more questions, and I will periodically be doing these lives again. And so, stay tuned. Stay tuned for when I do the next one. But I also want to say that my Becoming Pain-Free trio of courses, they kind of pulled together all the stuff that I've been learning. I know some of you may have bought it already, and it was a great price at the summit, but I want to offer it to you for another reduced price. So I know Lindsay's got the link for me, and you can use the coupon Zoom. Actually, I think the link has that already built in to get them 30% off. So I can't remember what that price is. They're normally $69, so 30% off that. So these are DIY courses. You do them on your own. Each one, there's one for the mind. It's called Activate a Healing Mindset. There's one for the body, which is Break Up with Sugar. Sugar is one of the most inflammatory foods. So I did a little 5-day thing on breaking up with sugar. And then Breathing for Healing. So mind, body, and breath. Each one of them has got a little lesson. a video lesson where I teach you something, and then there's a little bit of, I call it heart work rather than homework, a little bit of heart work. It's like less than 30 minutes a day, and you can do them on your own. When you sign up, you'll get access to the first day. The next day, you'll get day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and so on. So, really simple little courses. It's not a lot of money to put out, but I think the tools that I'm showing you in these courses are really helpful to help you, just activate that healing state of the body, giving your body the opportunity and the environment to allow it to do its healing work naturally. So, I want to say thank you so much for coming. There's so many of you on here. I really, really appreciate all of you being here. And I hope you got something useful out of this. I will be sending out the recording so you can watch it again. And I encourage you to just keep having hope, keep seeking answers, keep providing that environment, doing everything you can to provide the environment where your body can heal, so that when things come along, you can deal with it. You're pain free doesn't mean you never ever have pain again. It means that you understand that this is just your body talking to you and calling for your help and assistance, and you can put the environment in place to help your body. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I'm Jane Hogan, the Wellness Engineer, and I so appreciate you being here, for caring about your health, and I wish you the absolute best on your healing journey and the very best life for you. All right, take care, everyone, and I'll see you later. Bye.